Hello, Patchwork friends. Welcome to this week's episode of the Patchwork Revival podcast, the podcast that celebrates the generational connection we find through the quilts that we love. My name is Emily. I am your host. And today we have a really exciting guest episode. I was able to schedule a time to speak with my friend Marissa McHugh of the Surgical Sewist. Marissa is a vascular surgeon by day and a quilter by night. She discovered quilting in a time when she really needed something to fill a void in her life. She talks all about that. She's also very intentional about creating content and material that focuses on quilting as a wellness mechanism, a mechanism for maintaining positive mental health and creating community. I am so blown away by the intentionality with which she is able to talk about this, discuss this. She's even built an initiative through her website at www.thesurgicalsewist.com, where she provides kits and instructions via YouTube that are very short, manageable bites for busy people to learn how to English paper piece, specifically using the projects that she features in these kits. You can check out her channel at the Surgical Sewist on YouTube. That's also her Instagram handle. So we have a lot of continuity. She's very easy to find if you can just remember Marissa is the Surgical Sewist. I hope you'll enjoy this conversation. I know I really did. I can't wait to dive into this. Before we get started, a couple housekeeping items. First off, we are growing a little bit. My YouTube channel has been growing. I'm getting more and more downloads every time I release an episode, and that's so exciting. I'm so thankful. If you have time to like the podcast, to rate the podcast, or even to leave a review on the podcast, I would feel so honored and I would be so appreciative. I'm actually extra excited for this episode because while I had previously been thinking I need to have Marissa on the show because I really love her perspective and her intentionality behind wellness and cultivating a sense of well-being through quilting, she also specifically focuses on English paper piecing. And she even goes through some ideas for how to introduce sewing to younger kids, like her children. And I've had a review asking specifically if I knew anyone interested in English paper piecing. So I'm really glad we get to cover that. And then I also had a couple comments on the YouTube channel where there was some discussion about how it would be great to get some tips on sewing with kids. So here we are. I'm really excited because part of the reason I'm encouraging reviews and comments is that I want to know what you guys want to hear. So if there's an idea you have for an episode or a topic that you think would be really fun to address, feel free to leave a comment. You can send me a direct message on Instagram. Remember that my handle is at Patchwork Revival Studios, so you can find me there. There's also a Patchwork Revival podcast Instagram page. I try to keep up with that, but I'm going to be honest, 2 Instagram accounts is just a little too much some days. So the best place to find me is either in the comments section or leaving me a message at Patchwork Revival Studios on Instagram. Without further ado, let's jump into this interview. I know you guys are going to love hearing from my friend Marissa of the Surgical Sewist. Let's go.
My name is Marissa McHugh. I'm a vascular surgeon and a quilter, and I am a wife, and I have 2 little kids, a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. And I started quilting only about 2.5 years ago, actually. And this year, in the last year, I kind of started focusing more on English paper piecing, hand sewing, and teaching other doctors about hand sewing from a mental health burnout prevention kind of standpoint. So that's become my focus recently.
Awesome. So I've always been, first off, I found your account, Marissa, from Instagram. I was like, "Ooh, a surgical quilter?" And so, anyway, it always piques my interest because a lot of times there's a lot of healthcare crossover into probably sewing in general, but quilting I notice a lot. But I was like, "Oh my gosh, another quilty doctor." So, um, I started following you there, and then the wellness and sort of I think of it as for me, quilting is mental maintenance. And you focus a lot on that and you're really intentional about promoting that. And so I was really impressed and I was like, yes, I want to talk to her about this. So is that why
Yeah,
you started quilting? Like, how did you decide that's what I'm going to try?
yeah. So I knew you were gonna ask that, and it's like such a weird question. I was like, should I have a better answer? But this is really what happened. What really happened was, I had my second child, and it was the end of COVID, and I was really tired. So at the time, I had like a 3-year-old and a baby, and I was just exhausted. And so I would go to sleep right when the baby went to sleep, as people do. So it was like 7:30 and I was so tired and I would go to sleep. And so my husband um got like a hobby. He like started playing this online game with his my cousins and his cousins because I was asleep like all the time. I was so tired. And I thought, well, that's just because my babies are young.
Hmm.
And then I fast forward, long story short, was diagnosed with hypothyroidism, which is very common postpartum in women. And so I went on Synthroid, and I'm not kidding you, I gained like 2 hours back.
Oh, wow. So
I,
it was really life changing.
it was life changing. So I had these 2 hours every night after the baby went to sleep where I was just like hanging around. And really quickly, I got to the end of Netflix because remember during COVID, no one was filming new TV shows for a while. So
Hmm.
there was like nothing to watch. My husband was like hanging out with our family members, like playing this game. I'm like, what am I going to do with myself? And there was a quilt shop that was having a class that was like close to our house.
Hmm.
So it was very just like luck. I just tried it because I had to do something. I was like, what am I going to do?
Yeah. Was it a just like this is how you quilt intro to quilting, or was it a EPP class or
No, it was one of those classes where you cut like 6 triangles from pieces of fabric and then you like spread them out into a little fan. It looks like a kaleidoscope. It's a kaleidoscope
Oh,
quilt class.
yes, yes.
It was not for beginners, and I did not even know how to use my machine. And my machine was my grandmother's machine, which is like 70 years old. And the ladies were very nice to me because I showed up at their like advanced class not knowing how to do anything, but they were super kind.
Did you make a whole quilt in that class? Like, did you keep up with it
Yeah.
and all that?
Yes. Yes, I made a whole quilt. There was nothing else to do
Yeah.
for for days and hours. So I made the quilt and I like finished it on this little tiny old Janome 102 or whatever it is.
Uh-huh.
And my kids love that quilt. It's like in a fort. It's made into a fort right now. It's always as a
Perfect.
fort.
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be. I think that's like a quilt living its best life.
Yes, definitely.
So you stuck with it. You were like, okay, I finished that. Now what? Just keep going. You just liked it.
Yeah, I liked it as I was doing it enough to I was in the Instagram community a little bit because I lived kind of not near people, so I had to get online friends. And the Instagram quilting community is amazing. Obviously,
Yeah.
you know, I can't say enough good things about it. But I kind of at the same time started making a bunch of other things. You know, Quiet Play, Christy from Quiet Play had a bunch of free FPP patterns at the time that were small, so I made some blocks with those, just like trying out new things. And then I took the Exhausted Octopus class to do the photo. Well, this quilt
Collage.
is the
Yeah.
one, that one. Um, and that after I did that, I was just like, oh, I can make anything. This is great.
Yeah.
And because she is a great class, like it was all because she's a really high quality tutorial. But you know, online courses right now, you could learn anything in an online course.
Yeah. You can learn any hobby. We'll
Yes.
say that. Yeah. Also,
Yeah.
Since we're online, and I have discussed in the past on the podcast that I am a physician, and Marissa, you are Dr. McHugh in part of your life as a
Yes.
vascular surgeon. Things that we discuss are our experiences, our anecdotes, but not medical advice. Don't take it that way. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, just I
I am
think
a doctor, not your
yeah,
doctor.
we have to have I feel like every time I see, like, content, people leave this disclaimer, so I'm like, "I don't know, maybe we should do that."
I know. I like well, I don't even I use my maiden name as when I'm,
You're
at doctor
professional.
stuff. Yeah. I use
Okay,
my
good.
maiden name. So I'm always like if I'm Mrs. McHugh, then I'm not Dr.
Mhm.
Famularo. So
Yeah. Well, and I
totally
also
different.
too, I'm like, having 3 kids, I'm like, there is no such thing as Dr. Mommy because mommy has no rational brain when it
Oh,
comes to
totally.
anything with my family, my
Yeah.
friends, nothing, so,
Yes, totally.
yeah. Um But when did you start kind of intentionally recognizing quilting was more than just your hobby or you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. So I think it was before I started quilting. We lived near a Tibetan monastery in Cooperstown, New York, and I had a lot of friends that were into meditation, and it was COVID and everybody was stressed all the time, obviously. So
Yeah.
I was like, I want to meditate like everybody else does. And I had read a book about meditation, and I was like, yes, that is for me. I want to do that. And I was wearing a Whoop at the time, which is like the fitness band. And I wouldn't wear a fitness band now. It's like, I don't know who's going to take the data. But at the
Yeah.
time, I was wearing this fitness band. And so I was trying to learn how to meditate, and the band was telling me, like, definitively, this is better for you. It was like
Mhm.
decreasing my resting heart rate, it was increasing my HRV. Like, I was measuring it, and it was better. But I really disliked it. Like I
Yeah.
do not like it at
It
all.
was like a
And
chore.
oh, it was such a chore. And I was trying to get better at it and I was doing all the things and people were like, When you're good at it, you'll like love it." False. Okay. I never liked it. Um, but I do like being in the OR and
Mhm.
sewing in the OR. And I get into a flow state really easily in the OR. And I was like, man, that's what I need. So then when I just happened to kind of start sewing anyway, I quickly realized, again, because I was like measuring my own data, that sewing was doing the same thing as meditating, but it was not painful. It was not a chore for me.
Mhm.
And so I was like, this is amazing. I'm not going to meditate. I'm going to do sewing instead. And then like fast forward, my residents were miserable. And I used to be like, maybe you guys should meditate. Maybe I should meditate. And then I was like, wait, maybe you could do this thing. Maybe you could sew. And then the program director, like for our residency, was like, maybe they could sew and maybe it will like be good for their dexterity as well. So it had this like, multiple things were going for it. And
Mhm.
I was like, I really like this as a mental health thing for me. It's working for me for mental health. And maybe like I know that all of these other surgeons in training also need that. So that's why I was like, wait, I got to share this with some other people. But it sounds crazy. So like it needs a run up spiel because I know you're going to think this is nuts, but I want you to sew these two hexagons together. You're going to love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you give a presentation or do you just sort of approach residents, kind of trainees on their own? Or how do you kind of bring people into your world?
Yeah, well, for people, I know you already know all this, but like for people that don't know, like we spend hours and hours a day with these poor trainees who are forced to listen to us like jabber on, I feel like, about whatever we're doing. So the residents that have been operating with me a lot already kind of heard me talking about what I was doing,
Yeah.
and so some of them already were interested, and
Mhm.
one of my residents was like made a baby quilt. She was like, oh, I made this, and I was so excited. I was like, yes, I like dragged someone into this with me and she made a baby quilt. And then I was like, maybe I'll have an event at my house. And I asked a couple of the residents, like, when would be a good time to have an event at my house and you guys could come over and we'll hang out and sew. And then my one resident was like, I have 3 kids and I don't have time for mandatory wellness events. Please do not do a mandatory wellness event. And I was like, "Oh man, that's fair." You don't I totally understand what she was saying. And that's why I was like, "You know what? I'm going to make some YouTube videos and they can just do these whenever they want."
Mhm.
And that worked better for me. So when the new group of interns starts in July, we actually are going to do an event at somebody's house and like do a whole spiel and sew with them and sit down and give them a kit, and because they have to do a mandatory wellness thing and I
Yeah,
offered to do this.
yeah,
Um but they're online for people who can't go or don't want to go, and people who
yeah.
want to do it later, things like that.
That's so cool. So you have these on YouTube, some of these videos, right? And
Yep.
your YouTube is the Surgical
The
Sewist.
surgical sewist. Yep.
Mhm. You should subscribe. I subscribed because I was like, I want to check this out. And then tell us.
You don't have to worry about too much crap because I do not post many things.
No, you don't. And I was just curious, and I was like, your videos are like short, to the point, no frills, which is prototypical, like peak surgeon content. I feel like it's just like, hey, just get this done, do it like this, and then feel good. But it works. It really does. I'm a millennial. And so, I'm still of the era where I remember what it was like to not have a Kindle, the internet, a smartphone, a laptop. Like laptops, I felt like growing up, I was like, oh man, you have to be super wealthy and like super important to have a laptop. Like, and now
Right.
we have like a laptop in our pocket pretty much. It's so
Absolutely.
wild. But I so crave an analog world, like doing things with my hands, even if it's like holding a book or highlighting or handwriting or sewing. So I get it. I think we underestimate that. I don't know. I think that's part of why I love quilting the way I do.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that people want to make things with their hands. People want to spend time doing something and then have something to show for that after. That was another huge difference between like meditating and sewing for me. At the end, I had a thing to show what I was
Yep.
doing with my time.
It's like that sense of accomplishment, right? Like a sense
Hmm.
of purpose. And I feel too that it's so relevant and so perfect for people who are in a really intense training program in particular, because we're not that far removed from it. Being early career physicians, you remember you're spending, 36 hours at a time at the hospital, and you're trying to be strong and remember, oh, in 4 years, in 5 years, I'm gonna be. That is really hard to mentally power through day in, day out, all the
Yeah.
things. And so it's like little milestones you reach. And I think it applies to, I mean, I have a newborn now, right? I'm like, I do the same thing. I don't even know what day it is. I don't really sleep more than a couple hours at a time.
That's
So,
such a hard phase.
yeah, it is. But there's so many parts of life that are just kind of like that. And
Yeah. Well, if you look at the burnout data
mhm.
for physicians specifically, um, and also the PTSD data actually, which kind of like dovetails with, I think. But things that make people heal from burnout includes like a sense of accomplishment and a
Mhm.
sense of self-worth. And like you think, I'm not going to have a sense of accomplishment because I sewed these two pieces of fabric together. But like, yes, you will.
You
Yeah,
will.
you will. You're going to be like, look at this crappy little thing I made. And people are going to be like, wow, that's amazing. And like I know because I'm a surgeon, and you would think like why would you think the little thing that you do is so important if you're doing like surgery, right? Or if you're a mom, you're like momming is like the most important thing. How could I possibly think sewing is important when I'm doing this thing? I'm growing humans. But like it is important. It's really important, and it's an easy thing to show to people. They can see how hard you worked. They could see the time that you put in, and you like get these like little bits of like good job, you did a great job, and that like fulfills you. It keeps you going for the hard things because no one tells you every day how great it is that you're being a mom
Yeah,
or a
no.
wife or a friend. Like so you know it, I think this is a nice way to kind of heal burnout in that self-accomplishment way, and
Mhm.
that's been shown in studies looking at hand sewing and knitting and crocheting. Is like this is one of the things that really helps people who have burnout.
It does. Burnout, um, depression, anxiety. A lot of studying has been done. Like most of the papers that I found about it were actually focused a lot on um, the aging population, like dementia prevention, or it delays some of the sort of dementia symptoms that some people show, or is almost preventative in a way. Um, I'm not sure they can really say that, but it correlates well with that. And I look at, um, I knew three of my grandparents my whole life. I um, just lost my last grandparent. I'm 37 and I just lost my last grandparent. So I had my grandparents for a really long time. And I've talked a lot about my dad's mother who quilted. She probably started quilting in I don't know, I think she always like knew how, but she really got into it as a hobby and as part of her daily kind of ritual and community when she was probably in her 60s, 70s, I would say. And she kept with her quilting group till like a matter of like weeks or months before she passed away. She got really sick really fast. But she was active, she was sharp, she was not lonely because she had purpose in a place, and she had other kind of community things too, like church group, things like that. But quilting was a huge part of how she stayed kind of vital and present in the world around her, which I've taken that to heart and taken it as kind of an example of a way to sort of be part of something bigger than just the daily kind of drudge. That sounds bad, but that's
Yeah.
what it
No,
is.
you're right. I think you're absolutely right about that. And I think that data about community is really strong, right? So we want the kind of data that we use in the hospital, and you're never going to get that about like sewing and community and stuff. But the data about community and having a group of people that you're talking to on a regular basis and doing the same thing as they are is very strong. And I think people, maybe even especially doctors, maybe even especially female doctors, are like, oh, I don't know if I have enough in common with that person to be in a group with them. And I'm like, no, we need to be looking for groups. We need to be actively searching out groups as much as we can, because being in groups and being in communities is so good for you. You do not need to match a twin to be in a group with them. Right. And so, like, being in groups with other people who are quilters is like a great way to get into community, have community around you. It's going to lift you up. It's going to keep you young. It's going to keep you sharp. And I think the data on that's like very clear.
Yeah, agree. And I think the data on the opposite, like loneliness, isolation, kind of the tribalistic sort of stuff and traps that our culture falls into, I feel like it can be so undone when, I think about I haven't been in a while. I really miss going to my quilting group, but locally I have a quilting group. It's like one evening a month that everyone's welcome. You just show up. It's people of all different ages, all different walks of life. Some people are still working, some people are retired, some people are young, some people are older, some people just started quilting, some people have been quilting for forever. Some people like modern quilts, some people like the most traditional quilt you could imagine. And but we're all there because we're quilters. And the other stuff, I'm like, it doesn't even really matter or like enter your mind because you're there to celebrate kind of your community and your quilting group and other people's abilities and encourage each other.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I don't know if you were going to bring this up later, but like we just started a group for physician crafters specifically, which I'm like really excited about. And we had a meeting last night. But when I went on we have a physician craft Facebook page, and when I was like, hey, we should have these Zoom meetups because my quilt guild does Zoom sit and sews where you could There's no agenda and people just kind of hang out and chit chat. It's how I got my sewing machine because I came on and I was like, I need a new sewing machine. What do you guys think? I talked to everybody about their machines. It's like a very good opportunity to learn new things. So I was like, maybe the physician people who are sewing will want to do this. So I sent out, just a post being like, who wants to join my listserv, and then I didn't have a listserv. I was like, I made a listserv, join this listserv, and then I'll send you out a thing we could do this together. And 450 people signed up.
Right? Isn't that wild? I missed it. I was like, I need to try to do that, but
Well, what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a couple set up every single week, like every Sunday, every Tuesday, every Friday, something like that.
yeah.
And so that people could kind of come and go when they want. And just like, because people keep asking me on my Instagram page, why is it just for doctors? Because I feel like it sounds a little bit exclusionary
Yeah, like
that we have this.
hoity-toity, whatever.
Right. Yeah, totally. And so people are like, why would you do that? And the best thing I could tell you is like, for those of you who are in a mom's group, we have these like mom groups where we talk about our kids and we love them so much, but somebody who's not a mom could hear what we're saying sometimes and think like, she's not even happy that she's a mom. I feel like that's kind of just what happened to
Yeah.
Chapel Roan. She was like, all my friends with kids are miserable. And like, they're like, no, I was complaining about them because I love them so much. And it's like
Right.
hard to explain that to somebody without kids. I think that that's what a group of doctor does too. I
Yeah.
think like maybe we complain about stuff that makes it sound like not nice, when in reality we really love our jobs. We're super privileged to have these jobs. But I think that the group is more free speaking in that way, and so that's kind of why we kept it to doctors. I also thought it would keep it small because I don't know how to use Zoom, and I was trying to like figure out how to use Zoom in a way that was useful. So I told a bunch of people like, oh, once I figure it out, when we want it to be a bigger group, I'll invite more people. But it was so many doctors. I was really shocked about that.
Yeah. In some ways I am, but I'm also not at all because it's for me, everything your training is so technical and I think, you know, I know as an anesthesiologist, and I think as a surgeon too, you really understand that medicine truly is an art because the way you do things, the order in which you do things, and the feel of things, it's all very personalized and very specific. And I have ways I like to do things, and I, tweak things here and there. And it feels like um, almost like a masterful practice in a way, but there are still ways that we do things and why we do them, and there is still a level of stress that's like, well, this is a person, this is a, like, I can't break this thing, I can't, you know go off the rails and try something that is really wacky because that is an ethical problem. But I feel like having a creative practice, whether it's sewing, painting, whatever anybody enjoys doing, it really like fulfills that part of you that's like, I wonder if I tried this, what would happen? And to me, it makes total sense because we're science like geeky kind of nerds. Like we like testing things and experimenting and seeing what happens and working with our hands. And I think that's kind of a itch that gets scratched for me.
Yeah, that's actually so interesting. I haven't thought about that, but like, you're right. At work, I think people don't realize this. There are a lot of guidelines and protocols.
Mhm.
Like, almost everything that I do is following a national guideline or a national protocol.
Mhm.
Like, we don't get to be really creative. And it seems in surgery like, oh my God, are you just like sewing two things together? No, we have like very specific things that we do. They are protocolized. They have been proven on giant scales with big studies. You're right. People want to be creative, and like, this gives us the creative outlet that we need because we
Yeah.
are not being very creative at work, which is good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's much less stress to be creative with fabric. And
Yes,
yeah. I
totally agree.
actually yeah, I actually live that way a lot. I'm like, "Okay, well, nobody really dies in quilting, so just try it.
Yes,
Like, it's okay." Not that people die at work either, but, there's just a different reality when you're
difference.
working with
Yes.
sick people and seen what people go through. So I'm not surprised that doctors are like all about it, because the other thing too is you kind of talked a little bit about studies on creativity and dealing with burnout and PTSD. I'm like, the truth is, it's taken me many years to like admit and be introspective enough to recognize, like, number one, I was traumatized by my training on some level. And the things we see can be a little bit traumatizing, you know? And it's like not really okay to talk about it with people who don't get it, because they're like, I can't believe you are talking about this. Like, it's just not
Yeah,
socially acceptable, except in a very particular community and in a particular way. You know, you have to be, can't be talking about confidential things, but there's a way you can sort of be open about it with people who kind of understand where you're coming from.
definitely. Definitely. And we know in other groups of people that being around folks that have had the same experience as you and talking about those experiences, obviously in a confidential way, is really important. And we see that in our veterans
Mhm.
who have significant PTSD. And there are a bunch of studies actually looking at crafting in veteran groups treating PTSD, and those have all shown positive outcomes. So I think that it could definitely be applied wider.
Agree. Agree. Another thing that I found really thoughtful, and I was like, man, Marissa is going about this the right way. Tell me about your kits that you're offering people, because I have thoughts on it, but I want to hear your.
Yeah. So my idea with English paper piecing kit. So I have English paper piecing kits on my website
Mhm.
that I was am offering. I guess I have a couple of them left. And my idea was that I really wanted some of my friends and some of my residents to be able to try quilting by making something small, and especially with Joanne's closing, that is really hard to do. You have to go to a quilt shop, which is for many people a stressful experience. They've never been in there before. They don't know what to ask for. They don't have any of the things. People don't have a sewing machine. They don't know which needles to get. That whole thing is rate limiting for people.
Yeah.
And then my like a bunch of my friends also are super busy. So what I did initially is I made a YouTube I made these YouTube videos, and then I put a list on the YouTube videos with what you need to make the item. And all
Mhm.
you had to do was click on the list. It was like really easy. And people were still like, "Oh, I'm not going to click on the list." Like my best friend here was like, "Can you just put these together? Do you have these? I could borrow them." Like people are not going to do it. So I thought, "All right, if I make a kit, like a small kit, I could just give it to the person and then they'll have everything that they need to make a coaster, which is basically a tiny quilt block. And then if they hate it, they never have to do it again and they didn't invest anything."
Yep.
And that it was very popular. I like almost sold out of all the things. And that's what I'm doing with the residents coming up. Some people donated kits so I could give them to the residents. So I have almost all the kits for my resident event donated, which is so great. And it just gets people over that hump of like, I don't know what to get and I don't want to go to a quilt shop, you
Yeah.
know?
And then if you really like it, guess what? You have some needles, you have some thread, you have some
Right.
snips. What all do you have in
Hmm.
there? You have a lot in there. You've
Yeah,
at least like.
there's the paper pieces, the
Mhm.
fabric, two different kinds of thread, one for piecing, one for quilting, needles, what else? Oh, thimble tape, which I love so much. I like it more than thimbles.
Mhm.
A little like cute pair of scissors, some clips, some like little quilt clips.
Yeah,
So everything you need.
everything you need, and at least if you wanna go, "Okay, from there, I wanna make another one of these little coasters, or I wanna make a baby quilt," at least you've touched batting before, and you could even take
Right.
it and be like, "Hey, I need some of this," or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's such a good idea, because it can be so cost prohibitive to get started in quilting. And it's intimidating. I think about it, I'm like, okay, if I put myself in these shoes, it would be like me walking into some specialty like fly fishing store, or I'd be like,
Totally.
what is this? And then next thing you know, you're like, oh, this is like $800. That's probably super cheap for fishing. I don't know. But like, and then you go out and you do it once and you're like, oh, I don't even have time to do this again. So I totally get it. And I think that's such a good idea. And so you still have some kits left. If somebody was interested, could they?
Yeah. Yeah. I have kits on the surgicalsewist.com, which is my
Mhm.
like little website. If somebody wanted one and they were gone, I would like make one. I have like stuff.
And then
Um,
you have a listing for donating a kit.
I
So
do.
I think that's
Um,
really awesome.
yeah, and that's for my resident classes.
Mhm.
But if a resident messaged me, which happened once, and was like, I really want to do it and I have zero extra dollars, I'm like, I'll just send it to you.
Yeah.
So there are many residents who, and just for people listening, like medical and surgical residents, so doctors who are in training, um, make a, a very, very, very tiny salary for many, many, many years while they're in training. It's less than minimum wage.
Honestly.
It's less than minimum wage, and they don't get to put any money away towards savings at all. So most people are in, like, I did 8 years of postgraduate training. I made almost nothing towards retirement. So you get out, you're almost 40 years old, you have nothing in savings.
So
Yeah. And
sad.
so the residents who are like, so my residents now, I like try to remember that all the time. And like, residents shouldn't have to pay for anything. That's what I think. They don't have any extra money to be paying for anything. People took care of me when I was a resident. I remember like when we went to
Yeah.
lunch with the attendings, the attendings always paid. People take care of you because that's how this process has always been.
Yeah.
And so I don't want anybody to feel bad for us. I just want everybody to know that that's why
Yeah,
that
that's the
option exists for
point.
donating to a
Yeah,
resident.
that's the point of the kit donation option, and
Yes.
that's why I was like, "I'm gonna donate a kit," because I don't know, I would have loved that, and it's so funny. My favorite attendings were the ones who would, like, buy us coffee. It was like a dollar coffee in this little crummy cafeteria, but I was like, "It's so much better than the pre-op or post-op coffee
Totally.
machine."
Totally. Yeah.
And I mean, one of the biggest stressors, I can't remember there's a list of like all these big stressors in your life, moving, having a baby, new job, and money. I mean, money is a huge stress for people. And so the episode I released today was talking about trying to maintain your hobby amidst rising costs and some financial sort of considerations. And so I think this kind of ties into that really well. And um, I just so believe that quilting is such a passionate and caring community that paying it forward to other quilters and to people who want to be part of it but maybe don't know how or feel like they don't have time, this is a way we can just be like, welcome, join us. So
Yeah, and I think we need to do that. We need to do that with younger people. We need
mhm,
more young people like free, younger than us even in this community. I think it's important. And I think that we need to focus a little bit more on how to do this hobby in a way that is cost conscious
mhm,
and that is conscious of the products that we're using. So there's just a massive amount of fabric that exists that's going into landfills that would be perfectly great to be made into quilts. Finding that is the tough part.
right,
So like, I had two people from our physician crafting group that sent me like pre-cut fabric that's perfectly good, that they were like, we love this fabric, but it is not our style.
yep,
Do you think you could use it in your kits? And I was like, yeah, definitely. And me getting to do that. So when I'm doing my resident class coming up, all of that fabric's donated fabric.
mhm,
So that people were otherwise going to probably not throw away, but like put on their shelf and never use.
yeah, yeah.
So I think focusing on that and trying to be able to use the fabric that we have in order to make it into something that's better is important right now.
Yeah, and what I've found is what it takes to figure out who wants your fabric or how to donate it is a lot of times you just have to recognize, like, I just need to be generous with my things and with my time. And so, like, I don't know. I've been trying to think a lot about that because I have fabric that I don't want to throw away. I don't exactly know who to give it to. I don't have people lined up at my door. And I know
Right.
there's a creative reuse store that I could take it to and things like that. But I'm like, if somebody wants this, like, I don't even need 1 cent per yard. Like, I just want it to have a good home, a good life.
Right.
So I've tried to think
Yeah,
a
we
lot
have
about how to contribute in that way.
our library, our like sister library has a quilting club, and they will take and redistribute fabric, and we also have a creative reuse store here. So I think that that's important. And Rada on Instagram,
Uh-huh.
sewing through fog, she's amazing, but she has a map that you could look for creative reuse and recycled fabric locations in your area.
Yeah.
So
And for those of us who live on like a map dot, we might not be on there. Um, but I live in a very, I would say, a small town, in Texas. And I never thought we would have a creative reuse store, but there is one through like an auxiliary organization at the Baptist retirement community. And it's
that's great.
huge. It's huge. There's a whole room full of like patterns, thread, zippers, things
Oh
you can't even imagine. And then there's a quilting fabric room, there's a garment fabric room. The way they have it organized, cleaned, it's so impressive. I'm like, man. And anyway,
that's awesome.
they're out there for sure, but I
Yeah.
totally agree. Um I always feel a little bit like I walk this fine line between I want to support small businesses and entrepreneurs and people who are out there working really hard, like literally paying bills and putting like food on their table by offering online courses or having a fabric shop, writing quilt patterns and things like that. But there has to be a place where at least basics and where you could develop a really thriving hobby and skill set without feeling like you have to shell out thousands of dollars to learn how to do things. So,
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think that in quilting, that's especially true. Like the quilting came about because we wanted to reuse fabrics, make them go longer, go farther for us. And now all of a sudden you need $1,000 to get started. It like doesn't make any sense.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's kind of also how I feel about you. You know, you were saying that my videos are really short, which is true. Like everybody makes these YouTube videos. They all of a sudden turned into like the blog posts that are on recipes where you can't scroll down to the
Yeah.
recipe. Like,
Yes.
just show me the thing I came here for. And they're like, well, it's because YouTube monetizes based on how long people are watching. And I get it, but just like get on with the part where you tell me how to quilt. Like,
Yeah. I know.
you know,
I know. So I have to make you tell us about your quilt behind you for the Pantone Color of the Year challenge. But can you tie it into how did you how you do a lot of different techniques. You did a quilt class, you did some English paper piecing, foundation paper piecing. Did you teach yourself with YouTube? Did you do a class?
yeah, no. Chrissy from Quiet Play, I think I was saying
Mhm,
before, puts out at the time she was doing a buy one, get one pattern thing
mhm.
where you bought a pattern for $5 and got another one for a rainy day. And she has really great instructions that go along with her pattern. So I bought one, and looking back, it's like a little heart that says maker on it, and the letters are really small. And if I saw that now, I think I'd be like, "Ooh, that looks a little bit difficult." But I did not know any better because it's like the first FPP thing I'd ever done.
Yeah, what
And
you
I got
don't
it, and I was
know
like,
is sometimes a
"Yeah,
good
no,
thing.
it's so helpful." And so I was like, this is amazing." So I made it, and I was like, "Look how good I am at making these things." But really, it's just that her instructions are excellent. And then after that, I made one 12 by 12 square. And I was like, "Oh yeah, I know how to foundation paper piece." I mean, that's insane. But she just did such a good job. That's how I feel about this exhausted octopus class. I think
Mhm.
people do these classes and they're so good. And then I just thought, oh, I could do this thing. And then you kind of make it work.
Yeah. Mhm.
I made the plains and pine did a sew along for one of her star quilts. You know,
Yeah.
she does those like gorgeous. So I
Yes.
mean, one of my early quilts was I did her sew along, which came along with all these videos. And again, it was excellent videos, excellent instructions, and all of a sudden I felt like I knew how to make a quilt. Like if you find somebody that has your style instruction in video or text form, I mean, they can teach you how to do anything online.
Yeah, it's empowering, especially when you don't have time or you're like, you know, "I'm available at midnight on this day."
Right.
Like
Yeah, that's true. So like this quilt,
Mhm. I love it.
I thank you.
It's so beautiful, and I am, because I knew you were relatively fresh at learning to quilt, and then you were sharing the concept of this color of the year challenge quilt that you dreamed up, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm blown away. This is like artistry. It's incredible. I love her."
Thank you. Thank you. I'm like really excited with how she turned out. I don't know. I don't actually know why I thought I would be able to make an FPP pattern. I like don't know why I would think that that was a thing that I could
I
make.
feel like you just had to. Like, this quilt to me, okay, so this is going to be on YouTube, the video where you can see the quilt that Marissa is sitting in front of. And it is, for those of you who are listening, you should go to the YouTube video and watch it and see it, or go to Marissa's Instagram at the Surgical Sewist because she's featured this project. And it is, um, you dreamed it up. It's part of the Pantone color of the year, which is mocha mousse brown,
Mhm.
which I think
Yeah, it's brown.
I know, but I love brown. Like, I have always loved brown, and I'm like, brown has to have a moment beyond this, like, retro and, like, 1800s reproduction thing. Like, it's a beautiful color. I love brown. But, you used all different shades of brown in a foundation paper piece rendition of the Statue of Liberty, except for her torch is shining bright. It's so beautiful. I love it. So
Thanks.
tell us about it and then your process because we have to know.
Yeah, I might even make a video about it, but so I mean, I made it's a Statue of Liberty. Her eyes are closed. I feel like my daughter keeps telling me how sad she looks, and I started it in the beginning of February, and I think I was feeling very pessimistic politically, and that was kind of infused in my everyday, and so I started. With Brown, I was like pessimistic also about Brown. And I
Oh
was like,
man,
these two
see?
things are both making me sad. So I thought, well, all right, I could make something. This was my idea of kind of trying to express how I felt about the current political climate um, in browns. And so I was going to do the whole thing in browns, and I had not planned on doing the torch in golds. That
Mhm,
kind of came later. And then as I started making it, I think things happened that made me a little bit more optimistic. And I also started, meeting with some people in my local area and then our doctor crafting group. All these things made me more optimistic. I was like, there are more people that feel the way that I feel. There are more people that like want to work towards improving our country and like that, it just made me feel better. So, I made the torch gold, which I like we'll tip this up so that you can see it. But and then I hand quilted the rays of light um in a 12 Aurifil variegated yellow gold thread. And I think it just made it more optimistic. So it started off and it was very dark and pessimistic because that's how I felt. And it's getting more optimistic every day, is how I would describe it.
yeah, it's an evolution, and it's funny because when I think brown, I think of, like, a very warm, like, kind of welcoming, like, brown is rich, it's warm, it has all these different
Yeah.
shades and variations that, like, to me, she doesn't look sad, she looks focused and just unshakable to me. That's like what I see.
That's
And
great. I mean, I want her to be optimistic. And I think that the point at the end of all of this is like freedom and democracy are wonderful, but they're also like a burden for Americans to carry. They're an important light that we have to carry, and we have to work hard to keep them.
yeah.
And I think that she is working really hard to hold up this important light, even though it is work.
Yep. Yep. I love it. I think it's so good. And I just to me, I always like any quilt anybody makes, I always feel like is art. I call it art. I know there's always this debate, but I'm like quilting is an art form
Totally agree with you.
because it
Yeah,
is your internal
totally.
vision that comes, not all art is going to move people. Like I don't,
Right.
that's not why I make my art. But this one, I'm like, this is something that's going to resonate with a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds and beliefs,
I hope
even. I
so.
think it's so beautiful. And I just can't believe you just sat down on your computer and were like, okay, let's make this out of paper
So
and
so
straight
like I'll
lines.
tell you the process for that is that I like I took the picture that I wanted. So like,
Mhm.
and I don't know how to draw.
Yeah, I
So
don't
I
either. I'm so
yeah.
amazed by this, really.
No, I do not know how to draw. So I took pieces that I wanted and like I screenshot them and put them together on Procreate. So like that somebody had posted like a giant blown up picture of the Statue of Liberty's lips from before like the head was even put on the body. And I put that on top of her face as her lip. Like I pieced together kind of like an old timey collage with
Uh-huh.
magazines, all of the pictures that I wanted to make into this exact shape, because there are all these pictures for different angles and like some of them are from like cartoony type things. So anyway, it made this. And then I used Procreate to just flip it because everything has to be flipped for FPP.
Right.
And then I on Procreate you can make a layer, it's called. So in the layer, I just made like a lot of straight lines. Like I
Mhm.
broke it up into a lot of pieces using straight lines as best I could. And then I took away the initial picture, so I was left with only the straight lines.
Right.
And then I just made that into a poster.
Mhm.
So I just made it really big.
Right.
And that was like the papers. And then for every single piece that I was making, I would like take the paper for that piece and I would kind of look at the picture and be like, do I want to follow the lines that I drew, or do I want to make it a little bit differently? And then I would like do the best that I could. And kind of much like this quilt, just trust the process, because like you're making it and you're like, I don't know if this is gonna turn out like the picture, but it will if you just keep doing, if you keep making each little block, eventually it will turn into this. So
Yeah.
but I don't know what I'm doing, and I did it, so I believe fully that anybody could do it.
That's how I feel about quilting in general. I'm like, I mean, do I have some skill? Yes, because I've been doing this for a while, but the best way to learn is like just try. And then when you mess up multiple times, you learn what not to do. And that's the best way to keep going forward. So,
Yeah. And I also have like some edges that aren't quite right, and like sometimes my seams were just not quite a quarter inch and something like pulled apart, and I'm really into just like, grabbing a piece of fabric and folding it and putting it on top of that, and I'm like, nobody will ever see that again.
yeah.
So I do that a lot when I'm making stuff. I just hide it with more fabric, so sometimes they're like layers and layers, and it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. I people sometimes make fun of me at work because we have so many helpful people in the OR. They're like, "Do you like this or that?" I'm like, "I don't care. It's fine. Just keep going." That's my motto. And I've been there long enough that I have, actual relationships with people, so we'll jokingly be like, "It's fine. Just keep going." But that's sometimes that's all you can do. Just keep going. It doesn't have
I
to be
know.
a perfect thing because it's really like we've talked about the whole thing. It's about the process and what it does to us as people. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to make jokes about me about me saying it's fine at work, because if anybody that works with me ever
Right.
listened to this, they would literally call you and be like, she has an opinion about everything. She's very specific. But like in quilting, I'm not
Yeah.
very specific. So it's nice to, in this part of my life, be able to just kind of like make stuff work.
Yeah, like, chill out, let go a little bit. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, did you I am trying to see, did you bind your quilt yet, or did you do a facing? How did you finish the
It's a
edges?
facing.
I've
Yeah,
never
this is a facing. I almost always do a facing on an art quilt.
Yeah. I've never done before. I just do wash it and throw it on the couch and use it.
Love that. Love that too. No, for facing, I use Audrey Essery has a free
Yes,
so Cotton and
cotton
Bourbon,
and
she has a
bourbon,
free,
yeah.
yes,
It's funny because 'cause I've
a
watched
free
it.
tutorial.
I've watched it before because 'cause I'm like, "I wanna oh, how did they do that?" And then I watch it and I'm like, "Oh, wow." But I've never
She has a text only version of that tutorial that you could get from her website. It's free to download it. And I have every time I do a facing, I don't remember how to do it, and I have
Mhm.
to look at her tutorial again. And it is always very helpful. And it always lays perfectly. She has a bunch of very specific tips. I use her tutorial all the time for that, and she has another one for hanging sleeves if you
Perfect.
want, because those need to be standard size if you're going to send a quilt into a show.
Uh-huh.
And so she has like a very specific, clear set of instructions for making one of those
Awesome. For free. That's so cool.
for free for $0. Because I think it is awesome when people share their quilting skills for free and their ideas for free. I think that's amazing. I know that people need to make money, and I don't begrudge anybody from doing that. I mean, my kits are not free because I can't be giving out kits for free. So I mean, I get it, but when
Yeah.
like people like Audrey make like a really good tutorial and it's just on her website and it is $0, I think that that's amazing for the community. It's so great.
I do too, especially knowing how so many of us think about how my grandma learned to sew or learned to quilt or learned to crochet. Like, she did it because somebody taught her, and some of it for her was probably a chore. Like, yeah, I have to go do this mending or finish this patchwork or whatever. I mean, she was alive in the 20s and 30s. That's when she was a little
Yeah.
girl. But all of it, I think so much about how she taught me so much. It's truly like priceless knowledge. Like, I could never in good conscience be like, "Oh, I will never share this with anyone," because I'm really big into like our legacy and passing on our legacy to the next generation, or it doesn't have to be literally generation, but the next iteration and generation of quilters. And you know kind of goes back to just like the generosity and sort of that mindset that being in a community really generates, right? Because
Yeah.
you develop and you innovate by sharing ideas, and not everything has to cost money or be behind a paywall.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and again, like obviously people need to make a living and they respect that so much. But if you are in the position where you can give out
Yes,
information for free, it's I think so good for the community if you're lucky enough to do that. Does bring up something that I wanted to say, so I'm glad that you transitioned to that. Libraries are more important now than they have ever been, and they are a little bit under attack, which is so sad. But your local library, no matter where you live, like needs you and needs your skill set and needs your information. And what a great place to teach the next generation of quilters. So I recently taught a class at my local library, and it was for kids ages 6 and up, teaching them quilting, and they loved it. These like little kids really loved it. And we're gonna do more quilting at my library in the summer. A bunch of people were like, I don't know if kids will like quilting. They do. Kids really like quilting. They like hand quilting. They did an amazing job with it. And so many libraries across the whole country, I think, are looking for projects that are going to get kids together at the library and get them to do new crafts. And since I think everybody in the quilting community knows how good this is for mental health. Like, there's this side benefit for kids, like teaching them this super fun hobby that's also good for their mental health moving forward. And right now, when people are gonna, I think, it's going to be more of a stretch to pay for things, more of a
Yeah,
stretch to pay for
I
clothes,
agree.
more of a stretch to pay for, and so getting these skills and learning how to sew are going to be important for kids again. And I think if you have time, if you're listening to this and you have time and skills and you're like, how could I, give back to my community? Like, call your library because I bet they're looking for somebody to host a class and they would really love it.
Did you, when you hosted your class, what did it
Mhm.
look like? Did they do a little coaster project or how did it work?
Oh, they did. My kids librarian, like the lady who's in charge of the kids library, who is this woman named Barry, and she's amazing. She told me, because she has done 1,000 kids programs, that these like after school club kids programs at our library did better if they were multiple weeks in a row, because she said the first week a lot of kids don't come and then they tell their friends.
Okay,
So
yeah.
I did like every Wednesday in January, which I think was 5 Wednesdays. We did a 1 hour class. And so then I had to have 5 1 hour sewing projects for
Yeah,
kids, which was a little bit crazy. So I planned them ahead of time. And one was like an EPP bookmark, which I have a video for that on my YouTube, which anybody like it's cool because you don't take the papers out because it's a bookmark. So it's very
right,
easy for the kids. We did a little needle book where there are like pieces of batting on the inside to put your needles. One week we did a stuffy one week, like a lion head stuffy, and I have a video about that on my YouTube. So like you could steal any of they're not my projects. I saw them somewhere else online. So you like take them off my YouTube and do them with kids. And if you prepare some stuff ahead of time, you could turn those projects into 1 hour long projects.
right,
So like some of the cutting I did ahead of time. And the other thing that I learned is that kids can thread their own needles, but it takes a while. So if you want them to get started right away, have a bunch of threaded needles, and then they could at least get started and think, "Ooh, this is fun." And then if they struggle with the next threading of their
right.
needle, they don't get like totally turned off by that. And I also did this for my neighbor's Girl Scout troop and like one of the Boy Scout troops down the street. So I've been like doing this a bunch, and kids really react it well to learning how to sew,
Yeah,
boys and girls.
yeah, they do. I mean, I started quilting, like, I learned how to quilt when I was, like, 7 or 8, I don't remember, but I just asked my grandmother to teach me because I knew she quilted, and I was reading the Little House on the Prairie series and Little House in the Big Woods. Laura is doing her patchwork, and I was like, "I wanna know how to do patchwork," and my grandma took that and, like, ran with it. She was like, "Okay, well, let's make a giant quilt," and, like, I did, and it stuck with me all these years, like through so much. And so it is kid friendly. And I actually have plans for an entire episode about sewing with kids, like teaching good projects for kids. So this is a great addition. I'm going to have to refer to this episode too because it's I don't know, we do a lot of talking now about keep kids off social media, keep them off the smartphone. And okay, that's great, but what are they going to do instead? Here we go. This is a great
Right.
option.
And they talk about manual dexterity in children and there being some sort of a change generationally because kids are kind of like swiping more than they're writing.
Right.
And my son, who's in kindergarten, had a little bit of trouble when he started writing. He has messy handwriting, is what I would describe it as.
Right.
And he does a ton of Legos. So they were like, you should have him do Legos. I'm like, he already does so many Legos. He must need something else. And then he came to my little library class and learned how to sew. And his teacher was like, oh, it's, going to help his handwriting. I don't know if that's true or not, but it did make me feel like I was doing something for him
Yeah, well,
to
I mean,
treat this thing.
yeah, it's also a whole it's just a whole different part of your brain, and then
Yeah.
it's a confidence thing cuz at a certain point, like, I mean, we're grown-ups, so we know, like, okay, first off, if you have messy handwriting, nobody cares anymore because everyone just
Right. Nobody
types everything
cares.
anyway.
I
And,
know. I know.
second off, like, if someone was like, "You have messy handwriting," which I will just tell you, I do not, but if I did, I'd be like, "Okay, yeah, well, look at this, like, hand stitched binding that I do. Like you can just,
I
get
know,
over
I
my
know.
messy handwriting because
Well, my two kids, my son who at the time was 5 and my daughter who was like just about 4 at the time. Like they both made quilts with me last summer and fall and we sent them to QuiltCon and they
yes.
hung at QuiltCon, which was we were going to go and then something came up so we couldn't. But it was so super cool and there were a bunch of other kids at QuiltCon that had quilts in the youth
Mhm.
section. So this summer we're hoping to do, like I said, another program at my library, and I'm hoping to make like a communal kids quilt at the library, which maybe we could send into QuiltCon in the fall.
Oh, that would be
Um,
so cool.
yeah, but if people, I mean, if you want to like quilt with your kids, if people want to quilt with their children, like remember that there are youth categories in a lot of the quilting shows, and they don't get a lot of applicants, and they want to encourage kids to pick this up and to do it.
Yep.
So like, my son's hung a quilt con, and then he had a PTA art
Mhm.
thing at school, and I was like, I don't know, you want to send this into that because we made it already, and he was like, sure. And then like it won an award at that because I don't know how many kids are doing quilts in kindergarten. So he was so excited to like share this quilt with his friends at school. Like it was a really exciting whole like opportunity for him. So we got a lot of mileage out of this one quilt. So like I
Right.
really recommend other people do that.
Yeah, and there's local we have a big stock show and rodeo every year cuz hello, I'm in West Texas. But I think that's like a good exercise for probably kids, but even adults is like showing people your stuff, showing people what you made and you never know who's going to ask you and be interested in what you're doing and will you
Yeah.
show me and all those things.
And I know that you should just make things for yourself. Like
Yeah.
people say that. They're like, I just make this for me because I love it. And I think that that's really great. But if you're sewing for mental health, sometimes showing other people and having them be like, wow, that's super cool is helpful
Yes.
and is a nice, like, warm feeling. And I don't think that you have to be embarrassed if you want to submit your quilt to a show so people could tell you how great it is, because every quilt that hangs in a show, people are going to walk around and say how great it is. Like,
Yeah.
everyone's not going to like it, but somebody's going to like every single quilt. And, like, that's such a good feeling when someone else loves your quilt.
Yeah, it is. It totally is. And you might be opening a door for someone who is struggling or looking for an outlet or looking for a friend or a community. That could be the door that opens it up for them. And that's
Yes.
also a special feeling. Being a mentor to someone. Um, Before we forget, I wanted to mention too, you were talking about resources at a library. Um, my library has sewing machines, long arm machines. For the long arm, you have to go
Wow.
through, training so that you don't
Sure.
like
Still, that's
break it.
amazing.
I've never been able to do it because I just have not prioritized doing the class, but tons of people will finish their quilts. They have like long arms on a frame. They have a sit down long arm machine for people who may not be able to manhandle that thing around. They have a die cutting system for fabric. They have a laser cutter, so you could cut templates if you wanted to have them in
Oh,
acrylic
that's so
instead of
cool.
just paper. So there are tons of resources that you would not imagine that your library probably has. And like you
Yep.
say, classes, programs. But I've actually never thought about, I probably actually am qualified to teach someone how to sew like a quilt block or something. So
Yes.
I'm going to look
Yes.
into that
They,
because that's such a great,
yeah.
I don't know. That's how community works. It gives you something and then you kind of want to give it back. So,
Yeah. And I think part of the me being pessimistic politically recently is because it felt like w- it felt like there wasn't community. People didn't
mhm,
know each other in the community. They had a lot of opinions about the other people in their community. One of the ways that we can change that is by being a part of our community, learning to meet the other people who live in your community, and the library is a really excellent place to do that. There's so much cool things going on at the library. And the other thing, just for people listening, if you're listening to a podcast, you might also like to listen to audiobooks. And I just want you to know that your library probably has free audiobook apps. My library has multiple free audiobook apps. And in addition to me getting all of my cool audiobooks for free, I listen to tons of audiobooks every single month. Um, it also supports the library because all of that is tracked and it proves that people are using the library resources. So
Yep.
if you listen to audiobooks, even if you can afford them, try to get them for free through your library. It will help the library. You should totally check that out. Support your
Yep.
library.
Agree. I have a cousin who's a librarian in the DFW, the Dallas Fort Worth area, and um, she started this like young adult sort of book festival that has grown into this like incredible thing that they bring in like huge authors and all the things. And I'm always in awe of how unifying and just important a library is for even kids or people who have nothing. You have a library. And
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, I also remember as a kid, like I got my library card and it was a certain level of feeling like agency and ownership and
Yep.
independence, where it's like, yeah,
Yes.
I could check out a stack of books like this big. And
Yeah.
I was a total geeky dork. I've not that reading is dorky, but it kind of is when you're 8. You're like,
Sure.
Mom, can we please
Yeah. Yeah.
go to
Yeah.
the library? And I would get this giant stack of books, but I loved it. So,
Yeah, I had an amazing library in my town growing up. It was awesome. And where I live now, we have an amazing library. And in Pennsylvania, if you have a library in your town, which everybody doesn't, but if you have a
mhm,
library, you could also get a reciprocal card to any of the other Pennsylvania libraries.
mhm.
So, like, my library doesn't have a laser cutter, but the library in the next town does, and I have a card for them, so I could use it anytime I want. So, the resources that you could get for free through the library are amazing, and I just like to remind people that it's good for the library if you use them. It's proving that they need them
Yeah,
in your
that they're
community.
that they're worth it, that they're utilized. So,
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, is there anything about quilting, about the Surgical Sewist website, anything we haven't talked about? Any burning quilting issues?
Don't think so. No, I don't think I have any other burning issues.
Me neither. I feel like we talked about a lot of stuff, but I'm so thankful for all your time because time is valuable. And anyway,
I'm excited to be here.
yeah, thanks for coming
Oh, I do
on.
want to say one other thing. One other thing.
Yep.
I recently found out that I'm high risk for breast cancer. You know this story already.
Yes, tell us.
And I went to the high risk breast clinic at my hospital here and found out that I was very high risk for breast cancer. And so I decided to have a prophylactic mastectomy, which is a two-stage procedure. I just had the first stage. Um, and that's not the right choice for lots of people. I'm not here to tell more people to get rid of their breasts. That's not why I'm here. What I'm here though is to remind people that your risk is really complicated. It's more than just whether or not your mom had breast cancer.
Yep.
There are whole medical specialists dedicated to being able to help you determine what your risk is. And there are many things that you can do if you are high risk. Surgery is one option for some people, but most people are better treated just with either more surveillance or medications. There are lots of options. And the only way to know what your options are is if you know what your risk is. And so please, I hope everybody asks their doctor to please find out what their risk is just so that they know, because you could be in charge of your own health care. You could be in charge of what happens to you. You could take control, but you have to know what your risk is in order to do that. So people should ask their doctors about their breast cancer risk because it's really complex. It involves like many factors. And so it's worth asking about for sure.
Absolutely. And in the same vein, I actually just had this conversation on Instagram with my little close knit group about uh, just get the mammogram, get the colonoscopy, ask your
Yes.
doctor when you qualify or when you really do need to get your screens. There's screens for a reason. Cancer diagnoses have been on the rise in people younger and younger and younger, not just cancers, high risk cancers, so like
Yes.
serious disease. And
Hmm.
the screening procedures save lives, and we know it can prevent so many things. So get your screens, please.
Get your screens done, and please ask your doctor,
Yep.
because most of the time, if your doctor didn't mention it, it's because they have already thought about it and put it in your note and checked the box. But people are super busy, and it is important to take control of your own healthcare. So you are never ever going to offend your doctor by asking questions. I think people are worried about that. We are never ever offended answering questions. So please, please ask your doctor about your risks and about what screenings you need. So you need to be in charge of your own healthcare in that way.
Yes, agree. And honestly, I get excited when people ask me questions. I'm like, well, okay. It like derails my spiel a little bit, but then I'm like, it makes me like an active participant in the conversation. So I enjoy it. So anyway,
Agreed.
yep. Thank you so much, Marissa. I really appreciate it. Tell us before we go, where can people find you on the internet?
Sure. So I am on Instagram at the Surgical Sewist, and I have a website which is moderately well updated, which is www.thesurgicalsewist.com. And I recently joined TikTok, which I like intermittently post on, also the Surgical Sewist.
Okay, good. I'm going to put links to all of that in our show notes. And I hope that people will go look at your EPP kits. It's funny because I forgot to say this at the beginning, but I had a review on Apple Podcasts. People leave me the nicest reviews. I'm like blown away at how like nice people are. But somebody, was like, I love this podcast. I've really enjoyed it. By the way, do you have anyone who's interested in EPP? And then I was like, here we go. This fits it perfectly. And then also someone was like, I would love some information on how to sew with my kids. And so I found
Oh,
a
perfect.
guest
Yeah.
for that. And then I was like, yeah, we ended up talking about that too. So we're just bringing the
Yeah.
people what they want. And I love it. So.
Yes.
Well, that's it for this episode of Patchwork Revival. I loved having you here with me talking all things quilting. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and leave a rave review. Also, be sure to jump down to the show notes to find links for this episode, as well as the link to my shop where you can enjoy 15% off as a podcast listener with code REVIVAL. Remember that the Patchwork Revival podcast is here to celebrate the connection made in the quilts we love. I'll see you next time.